Okay, welcome to another episode of Off Course. I'm your host, Hamilton Sivadas, and today we have another collaborator in the building. He is a social media rock star, a mortgage expert. He's going to be on the show very regularly over the next couple of weeks, so you better get used to seeing him. His name is Varshan Thavarajah, also known as Mortgage.Nerd. Varshan, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Hamilton. This is a pleasure being here, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
No, man, I'm really excited to see what our conversation, brings. And I think there's a lot of value for people to take home with them, right?
Yeah.
Anyone listening in. So, yeah, I'm very excited, man, and excited to kind of keep this ball rolling, man.
Okay, so just for everybody watching at home, over the last few weeks, I've been bringing on guests on the show. Not really guests, they're collaborators. The only guest that we've had on was our last guest. Our first guest was our last episode, Mr. Andrew Perry. Varshan, Driver 95, Dinesh, and Lance. These guys, I've introduced them to you guys as collaborators, meaning they're going to be coming on the show regularly. So Varshan's going to be my guy every time we want to speak about mortgage-related discussions or just real estate in general.
Sure, man. Yeah.
So I think Varshan actually is going to be one of the guys that you see the most often on this show in terms of collaborators. So Varshan, before we get started, tell us about yourself, how long you've been in the business, and how you've kind of like generated this social media content.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So as you said, I'm a mortgage broker.
Yeah.
No one grows up saying, I'm going to be a mortgage broker, right? So definitely had an interesting way where I came about it. But, before that, more about myself. I'm a Tamil Canadian.
Yeah.
Parents are immigrants. I was born in Sri Lanka, but came here at a young age. Yeah, 4 years old.
No way.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I don't think you told me that before.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I was raised here though, right?
Yeah.
And, parents worked blue collar jobs, worked multiple jobs in some cases, right? Just to put us ahead.
Yeah.
So, pretty much very similar stories to other, Tamil Canadians that immigrated here as well. So, yeah, I mean, growing up, education was huge, right? So, parents really put an effort on, telling me, hey, you got to get your education, get a good job. You know how it goes, right?
What were they pushing you to do, or what were you
Honestly,
thinking?
There was no push into, a specific
just get your
thing.
education.
Just get education, focus on your studies, and, get a good job, right? That was kind of the formula at the time, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they knew, right? So that's what I did.
So what were you pursuing at that time?
So finance. I did finance.
Okay.
So it's funny. I got into finance because, I don't know if you remember this, but in like grade 7, 8, you did this, I forget the website where you put you do this questionnaire and it shoots out what job.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Was it in our civics class? I think it was like in the
civics. Was that grade 7 or 8 or was
it was grade 7? Yeah,
it was, right? Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember.
You took it one of those years.
Yes,
it was 7 or 8. It wasn't. I don't think it was consistent.
Exactly. Yeah. So up until that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to. I mean, who does, right?
Yeah.
So I remember when I was like doing that test, and I did it a few times to see if it would give me different answers.
Okay.
And it kept going down to investment banker or money market manager, right? And I was like, what the hell are these things, right? So I think it was shooting me those answers because I was looking for obviously an avenue to, make money, right?
Yeah.
What's going to make me the most amount of money? And in terms of
you were looking for office jobs because at that time, that's what we were told got you paid.
That was the
a nice desk
the
job.
pedestal type job, right?
Yeah,
so you go into a good company, you work your way up, right? So anyways, so for some reason that was always in the back of my mind. So I think I just naturally went into finance. I was good at math as well. So I think that generally gave me the confidence of this is where I need to go.
Okay.
So yeah, I got into finance, did finance in university, graduated, and I started working while I was in school, in the finance industry, but they were more so back office operations jobs. Didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right.
You were working in banking though, right?
Eventually I got into banking.
Okay.
I started in insurance and then I got into banking. When I got into banking, I did like the job, right? Because I had the interaction with different types of people, seeing their finances, things of that sort, on a small scale, but still we're able to have that conversation with them, right?
But it gave you that window to realize how hard it is to make money and establish yourself, right?
Yes.
Because I feel like we're kind of parallel in our stories that way. Because I also came up in banking, but go ahead.
Exactly. So so just on that, what really opened my eyes in terms of real estate was because I didn't really have a lot of people around me telling me about real estate or buying a lot of real estate, right? for example, my parents, they moved once and they still live in the same house, right?
Okay.
So it's not like we're buying and like, doing a lot of real estate transactions. But anyhow, I was seeing a lot of different profiles, right? And I was always intrigued by like, how is this person who's making, let's say 50,000 is able to have 3 mortgages? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? At the time, right? So that really intrigued me. And then at that time, we didn't really have any like social media, YouTube, or anything like that.
It was none of it. We didn't even have Facebook.
Yeah, I think Google was the only option, right? And even then, like, you don't know like what website is what, whatever it is, right?
Or
no
one's
trusted. And no one was really giving the goods. Like, everything is gate kept, right?
Even now,
exactly.
Yeah.
So essentially, like, I was always interested in it, but I never really like learned about it, just because I didn't have the resources.
Yeah. So
eventually, I was kind of forced into my first transaction where my parents were like, hey, you need to buy a house and this and that, right? So they kind of not pressured me, but they kind of pushed me to do it. I also wanted to do it, but I felt nervous just because I didn't know what this whole process is all about. So actually in 2014 is when I made my first purchase, right? Okay. And the experience was terrible.
What did you buy? What did you end up buying?
It was a semi-detached home in Scarborough.
Right? Okay. South side?
North side.
Okay.
Close to Malvern.
Okay.
It was...
Because even then, Malvern still had like a stigma attached to it. Yes. Now, I think that stigma is kind of
2014 wasn't as bad, though. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad. But now, it's not like how it is now, for sure. Yeah,
like when we were growing up, like... You wouldn't really want to buy there, so I'm surprised that you pulled the trigger on a transaction.
But hey, that was the price point at the time, right?
That's what you could afford.
Exactly. And living in Scarborough, being raised in Scarborough, I understood the market too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I knew, like, obviously there's certain neighborhoods you don't want to buy in, but there's other neighborhoods just in the outskirts that are not as bad, right?
Right.
So that's basically where we bought. Anyways, so that transaction on the mortgage side was a disaster, right? We ended up getting it with the bank, but it was just like the communication, just like the experience just didn't feel right?
Is that because you weren't prepared? Like, you didn't do your due diligence leading up to it, or whoever was helping you let you down? It was
multiple. It was both of those.
Okay.
And it was just... Yeah, it was just honestly the lack of knowledge, and also the person who was taking care of it. He was like my dad's person, or not my dad's person. Sorry, he was my realtor's person.
Yeah.
Right, and he was just the worst communicator. Right.
Right.
So anyhow, that really put something in my head. Was like, hey, listen, like, I want to be a part of this process, but I just don't know what I want to do. Like, do I want to be a realtor, or do I want to be, on the mortgage side? The mortgage side didn't seem so attractive just because of my experience. Like, I felt like, is that how it is every single time? Right. Whereas the real estate side was more enjoyable, right? Because, you're just taking people to homes. Like, this is my perspective. Obviously, I know there's a lot more now, but, you're just taking people to homes. Oh, they like it.
You buy, you're done.
That was my mindset. So I was like, oh, that looks a lot easier. I didn't know how the commission, all that stuff worked at the time, but just, thinking it through. And then eventually, I know I'm kind of dragging this on, but...
No. Listen, it's a podcast. We got time. The longer we go, the better. So go for it. Go for it. Details are good.
So eventually I was just like, okay, I want to do one of these two. And I eventually decided mortgage just because, had the finance aspect of it, right? Which I loved, and the sale. So I kind of married the both of them together, which worked really well for me. And then also I, not saying anything to realtors, but I just couldn't sacrifice my weekends and evenings to take people out.
So that was it. Because I feel like all of us go through this when we start in the industry, myself included. Because when I got into real estate, I also went and got my mortgage license. Because I think a lot of us did that, especially back then.
True. Yeah.
I've been in the business 12 years now. So then...
And mortgage license is very easy to get.
It's easy to get. Like, it's the easier license to get of the two. So I was like, let me get it. But the amount of work that you guys have to put in for things to fall apart at the last minute, you're constantly putting your neck on the line. Yeah. And so that's how I weighed it out in terms of which I wanted to go with. And I went with the real estate. But you're right. You don't really have a life when you're busy. Your weekends are gone. Your evenings are gone. You kind of just have your weekdays. So it does suck from that perspective.
No, absolutely. And just to kind of go off your point, it's the easiest license to get, but it's the hardest to maintain.
It's the hardest to maintain.
Right?
I think what you do is probably a lot more work and stress stress related. It's a more stress related job than what I do. Like, yes, the stress in like, hunting down a new deal.
Yeah.
But I think for you, the stress is ongoing from the moment you get that person to closing the deal. You just want to make sure that they don't mess anything up, that you put the deal together properly.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's a lot of parties that are relying on you, right? Not just the buyers, but the realtors on both ends, right? They also want to make sure. And then if it's a buy and sell, the sellers are relying on you, right? So there's a lot of people that like you make one mistake, it can be a chain reaction to mess up, different people's transactions. For example, like we've had, where a seller or a buyer has come to us, and because they had to extend or their mortgage got declined last minute, now the seller is, left stranded and doesn't know what to do with their purchase on their new home, right? Which I'm sure you've probably heard situations of that, right? So
yeah, that happens all the time.
That's something, that's something that we focus on, or I focus on all the time to ensure that, everything is done in a timely manner and the experience is essentially 5-star. But just going back to what I was saying, like, because I feel like I'm starting to go off course here.
We're good.
But yeah, so I essentially decided that, and then I think another component was also I was gonna do it part-time, and I felt like there's no way I can do real estate part-time in my head.
Business.
Yeah, not this business, and I'm sure you can.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard because you're not able to be there for your clients when you need to be there for them. So it's like, I feel guilty if I make a client wait for me. It's like, I want to be there for them the moment they call. I don't want them to feel like they have to wait for me to finish work or what I'm doing. I'll try to get back to them immediately. I think when you have a job, it's harder to be as responsive with your clients.
It's impossible. You can't even have 2 jobs in general. Like, forget real estate. Like, if you have your day job and then you take on another job, you're doing one of the jobs poorly, like no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, so I took that approach. But the funny thing is, when I did that mindset where, hey, like I wouldn't have the time to do it, I ended up doing mortgages at my day job.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So because I got lucky, things started to get busier, right? Maybe not luck, but I was working really hard to kind of grow that business, right? Because I really wanted to leave my day job and start mortgages full time. So the quicker I can grow that business, the quicker I can get out of my day job.
So it wasn't a conflict of interest working where you were working?
So I wasn't at the bank at that time.
Weren't at the bank?
I wasn't at the bank. I was at a pension firm.
Okay.
And I was actually working in real estate, but it wasn't a conflict of interest at the time.
Okay.
Right?
I asked that because that's what it was for me. I took a year of leave, like a 1 year leave of absence in case it didn't work out. Then I have a fallback to come back to the bank.
Yeah.
It worked out, so I never had to use that.
Yeah.
But that's what it was for me. Leave conflict of interest.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. I think the bank definitely has a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
But essentially what eventually happened was, the company started, or like my manager started
noticing,
and director started noticing, hey, like you were getting all the stuff done, but you didn't seem like, you're always on the phone, or, you're always stepping away from your desk, right? Like something seems off here, right? Because it is a desk job essentially, right? Yeah, I'm not really taking a lot of calls at this job, right?
Yeah.
So eventually I had to kind of make a game plan to leave, right? So I spoke with my wife, and she was a little nervous, obviously, very apprehensive. Yes, of course. But her approval came with some contingencies, right? One of them was, I need to make enough to replace my income at my day job.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like,
how did you guarantee that?
I had to, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how badly I wanted to leave, right? And kind of start this venture. So I really worked hard that year to kind of, service clients, grow my business, learn the ins and outs, right?
So what were you doing at that time to grow the business?
So at that time, I was just learning the game,
okay.
Right? So selfishly, because I was in real estate as well, I wanted to know, how do I help clients purchase more real estate, right?
Okay.
How do I get them financed for better mortgages, right? How do I, not just like looking to get just the best rate, like we all know we can get that, right? But what's really going to set me apart from the other person, right, is how do I help you grow your real estate portfolio, buy multiple properties? Or how do I make people who cannot get into real estate, right, through different avenues?
Right.
So,
but how were you communicating that message? How were you putting yourself out there to get the clients? So especially when you're working a full-time job.
Yeah. So I was doing a little bit of social media at the time.
Okay.
But at that time it was more posts, not videos.
Okay.
Right. So I was doing posts, here and there. I was
Networking, maybe?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to more networking events, more particular to investors,
Okay.
right? And just really learning off everyone, right? But I was more so trying to learn from the lender side first, because if I don't have something I can tell a client that, hey, this is how you do this and this and this, this is the ideal way to do it, then why would you choose to work with me, right?
Yeah, because at that point, all you can really tell them is, I can qualify you for this rate, whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't actually understand the processes.
Exactly.
You don't know where a deal can fall apart and how to maneuver around that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I need to learn that. I got some training as well in the beginning. It was.
So are you still with the same company that you started at, or
No,
Okay.
I wasn't. I left that just before COVID.
Okay.
So 2019. And then when I transitioned to the new company, that's when I went full time, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, so eventually I got to match my income from my old day job, and that allowed me to go full time. I went full time just before COVID hit. Right. So technically speaking, I could have done it at the same time, because my whole issue with work was that, you had to be in the office. Right.
Oh man, you must have been like,
I was at first, because obviously during COVID, there wasn't a lot of transactions in the beginning. Right. Because everyone was like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
So what the heck is going on? So I was, but I at the back of my head, I always knew, like, hey, listen, like, there's always a job that I can go back to if this doesn't work out. Right.
Yeah.
But lucky for me,
so you made the transition right at COVID.
Yeah.
So, but the first 8 months was brutal of COVID for us.
It was.
Like, to the point where I remember, like, you had to do transactions sight unseen, right?
So,
it was virtual walkthroughs. You had to just be okay with this and get the deal done.
So purchase side, absolutely. And this is why I think being in mortgages really helped me out.
Yeah.
Because that's when rates dropped to, like, I think it was like in the not ones. I think it was still in the low twos.
Yeah.
Right. But heading to the ones. So a lot of people who were locked in at 2018, 2019 in the threes.
Renewing.
No, not even renewing. We were like, hey, let's break that mortgage and bring you over to a bank. So I've helped a lot of clients during that time where they had like 3.8, 3.7, locking at like 1.6, 1.7.
Okay. And you moved them to traditional lenders. They were probably with B lenders.
No, those were with bank. Those are bank lending. Yeah. So those were the rates at the time with the banks. And we were able to switch them over. So that was that definitely picked up volume for me. But for me, I think I really focused on the client experience, right? Because I always want to treat clients how I want to feel my experience going through the home buying experience, renewal, refinance, whatever, investing, whatever it may be. I always wanted to portray that experience to them, having gone through a terrible experience myself, right?
Yeah.
So I think that really built a referral pool for me where clients were like, man, that's my guy.
You almost needed to go through that.
Yes.
Like, because now you know what not to do for your clients.
Absolutely.
Right? You know all the mistakes that were made. You're going to avoid that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that really helped boost a lot of it as well. And then I eventually, I think after COVID, or not after COVID, once COVID hit, I think that forced me to kind of make videos. That's when I made my first video, actually, in my room.
Oh, shit.
Because I was like, how do I communicate with people?
Yeah.
And now, we cannot see each other anymore.
Yeah.
There's no more networking events. There's no more, meeting people or whatnot, right? So I was like, okay, it's time to make some videos, right?
Yeah.
And I had more time on my hand because I'm at home, right? Now I got full 8 hours, no other job on my mind, right? So yeah, that's when I started pushing more on social media.
And so you started making content yourself every day?
Yes.
Or was it every day?
No, it wasn't every day. I was a little nervous, as anything is when
it's
you're
hard,
putting yourself out there, right?
Yeah,
right?
It's hard. Like, you got to get used to seeing yourself, hearing yourself,
Yeah.
and then watching yourself back. It's hard.
Exactly,
It's hard.
right? And I do cringe when I see those videos
so do I.
now. But I'm like, hey, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to improve and get to where I am now, or even as we go on, right? Because one thing I realized with social media is it's just consistency.
That's it.
You just get better with consistency.
Yeah.
If you stay consistent, things will happen. Like, first year I was doing it, I wasn't getting much from social media directly, but after a while, I think people start seeing you. Maybe your posts get pushed more. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know how the algorithm exactly works in that sense. But I felt like now people are reaching out more comfortable to booking a call, just having conversation within the app.
Well,
right?
you've established yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think even for me, because I'm like brand new on social media, I'm kind of where you were at that time in 2022, I guess, or 2020.
2020, yeah.
Yeah, it's you need to have enough content where like people can scroll through and be like, he is a trusted professional in the industry, and that's probably what happened for you. In that first year. You were just kind of building up the library. And you're right. You have to continue to make content regularly, or else you don't know where to make those micro adjustments, right? Like you're not just good all of a sudden on camera. You make little adjustments every video.
Exactly. And you get better at not just making the video, but just figure out what content sticks, how to kind of quickly do the videos. Now I do my videos, like I batch them and I do them in one day, and like I'm pounding out like 10, 15 videos in a day, right?
Right.
But when you post it doesn't seem like that, right?
Okay.
But I think that's crucial because
you weren't batching before though, right?
I was, but on a smaller scale. Like I was talking about like 2, 3, right? Because I think coming up with content, knowing what content is right and figuring out how you're going to deliver it.
So exactly. So I find that's the problem with batching content. Like I don't batch content, but I find that if you batch content, then you don't know where you made a mistake because you've already filmed everything.
Yeah.
And then now you put out a video and you realize, oh shit, I messed up here.
Yeah.
Well, you got 5 more videos to put out, right? Like they got to come out no matter what.
And that's the beauty of beauty of social media is that, this is you, right?
Yeah.
You have to be authentic at the end of the day, right? If you make a mistake, that's fine. As long as you're not giving the wrong advice, you're fine. But if you made a mistake, you stumbled on your word, you said or whatever it is, that is what it is.
It is what it is.
You're a human, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't want to, like, if I see someone scrolling on Instagram, if I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see someone that's like giving some sort of advice, let's just say accounting advice, like, if they're like so proper and like not making a mistake, I'm gonna be like, oh, is this a robot? Or like, you know what I mean? Like something's like you don't feel like you can relate to that person,
so
right?
So that's how I was feeling about your content. Your content is very relatable. You seem like a very chill guy, and that's how you portray yourself. I think that's where people get that comfort. Whereas if you were just showing up in a suit and tie and you were speaking in corporate lingo all the time, which is what I find that a lot of people in the industry do.
I see people do that,
It's constant, like big words and everything is a superlative. So everything is amazing and great and the best or whatever. It's just not real. That's not authentic.
Yeah.
And I think like that's kind of what you've been really good at. You don't really portray yourself that way.
Yeah, no,
it's very natural.
That's exactly what it is. I think when I shoot my videos, I'm in the mindset where I'm just talking to a client on the other end.
That's it.
Right?
Exactly.
And also trying to simplify these things. Because in the mortgage world, there's big jargon words, this and that. I'm trying to like simplify it as much as possible because I feel like there's such a huge knowledge gap when it comes to real estate and finance in general, right? Just because there's no course about it. There's there's courses about things that we don't even use in our daily lives in like high school and whatnot, but nothing about mortgage. Not even in university there's a course about mortgages, right?
Yeah.
Like there's real estate courses, but nothing specific on mortgages.
But even the real estate courses are kind of new, right? Like that came around when we were growing up. Like when we were in school, they started introducing that. So that hasn't even been part of education up until like recent times.
Yeah, now I think there's like actual like post-grad and whatnot in real estate, right? But no, I agree. Like I feel like there was such a knowledge gap, and I tried to fill in that gap as much as possible, and it's worked because I think a lot of people have come up to me and told me through DMs like, hey, like your content has really helped me out figure out like maneuver different situations they're in, right? And I think also the reason I'm doing that is really to educate and empower people, because I really do think real estate can change people's lives, right? Especially when you're investing in it, right? I think the biggest mistake people make in real estate is over leveraging, right? So as long as you don't over leverage,
the debt, like that's a conversation that I definitely want to have. Like, we've been living in a state of just accumulating debt, accumulating debt. And like, I'm just like looking at like the next 5 to 10 years. And like, I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day. It's like, I just want to get away from it all. Right? Like, how do we start like bringing it down? But anyways, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's talk real estate. Let's start with something that's in the news right now. Liberal government, Trudeau, he's trying to get reelected. So he's just announced the new 30-year amortization. We've been down this road before in the early 2000s, 40-year amortization. We know what that did. We got away from it, and now they're discussing 30 years. Do you want to kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Yeah.
So I think any change from the government is always good, right? So I don't want to bash them for this,
Yes.
but I definitely don't think a lot of people are going to take advantage of this. Reason being is a few things. The 30-year is only for new build properties.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
Most new build properties are over $1 million, which is CMHC's requirement. So that's another thing. They're only doing the 30 because 30 years available when you put 20% down, right? But it's not available when you put less than 20. And that's what they're doing with this change. They're allowing people who put less than 20% down to stretch their mortgage over 30 years. So number one, new builds,
20% all the time. Well, most of the time.
But just because the property value is going to be billion. So it's really condos you're probably looking at.
I was just going to say,
right? And then on top of that, most builders require 20% deposit.
Yes.
So what happens there, right?
Yeah.
Like, are you like, what's the incentive for them to not put 20% down if they've already put it down on the deposit, just to have 30 years because they get that when they put into 20% down anyways, right? So that's that's the other avenue. And then I also think, most people just don't want to have like the mortgage stretched out to 30 years when they're putting, a little down payment down, right? Like maybe 5-10%, right?
So like I agree with you. Like if you're buying a townhouse or a detached home, you got to put 20% down. This rule is not going to apply to like any of those deals.
No resale properties.
No resale properties. So that's off the table. Most detached freehold properties off the table, unless you're buying somewhere, in the outskirts where they're doing, there's like lower prices, right?
Yeah.
But I do think this could potentially move prices up. And the reason why is because, as you said, condos, right? Condos will be under that million mark. So people will be able to buy in. And developers are hurting right now. So they may not be as, they're not going to be as strict about the 20%. So maybe they'll do the 10%, 15%. So if we start seeing movement in the condos, then it's just going to trickle into the townhomes and the detached, the freehold properties. So like that's kind of what I'm worried about. You're right. It's not going to affect most of the properties, but it will affect the lower end supply. And then that could potentially raise prices. No,
I agree with you. But my issue with this is like, yes, you're going to build or you're going to help push up the prices on new build condos, but why not help everyone that's looking to get into resale? Not everyone wants to buy a new build, right? Like, what if they're ready to buy now, right?
Yeah.
And it is going to definitely push prices if they push it to resale. And that might be their worry. But if you really want to help first-time buyers, then put it into resale, right?
No, I don't think this is to help anybody.
Yeah.
I think this is more so
this helps the builders, if anything, to some extent to increase the sales, right? Like, that's the only thing I see.
It's a nice headline for the Liberal government. And also, like, long term, this is just going to make everything unaffordable.
It's like that incentive program, right? That they had and they just recently canceled it because no one is taking on that program.
You're talking about the program where they help you with their down payment.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What was it? Do you remember?
So was it like an equity program, right? They'll help get like let's say you put 10% down, they'll give you another 5%, right?
Have you ever done one of those deals ever?
I've had a lot of clients that try to qualify for it, and they actually qualify for less than if they had gone into the market, like purchased on their own without it.
Okay.
Because the only thing it allows you to do is, and this would have made no sense. It's so yeah, you have a smaller payment because they're putting down 5%, right? So your mortgage is lower, right? But you're giving them that portion of the equity in your property.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense to me or most people for that, right? And then the other thing is they cap your borrowing limit. So I forget the specifics right now.
500, 600.
It was like not the limit on the property amount, but more so on
the amount that you're borrowing.
But the amount that is times your income. So it's like 4 times your income is what you can borrow. Okay. But when rates were low, you can actually do almost 5 times your income.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So people were qualifying for less to go with this program, right? And when you explain to people, like I think people didn't understand that, hey, like, yeah, there's no interest, there's no payment, but you're paying in the future equity. They were like, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to do that, right?
Yes, I hated that program myself as well.
No sense.
It made no sense.
They should have just done low interest, right? Like do low interest or no interest if they really want to help people out.
Or make the qualification easier.
Or make the qualification easier,
Yeah. I guess who it would help is somebody who doesn't have a support system. They don't have anybody to lean on, but they have that 5%. Maybe it's a way to get some skin in the game.
Yeah.
It would make sense if you're doing this in an economy where everything is moving upwards. You cash out and hopefully you made just enough that you can put it into another down payment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. For the most part, it was just a silly political move. It was just, again, it was just like this 30-year amortization that we're talking about now. It's more of a headline. Most people are not going to utilize it.
Yeah.
In the long run, it probably just does a bit more damage to the market.
If anything at all, yeah. But I doubt it's going to have much impact at all.
No, but so you don't feel like this is going to cause, okay, when we're looking at opportunities in the market right now, right? It's really hard to say, what is a good investment, right? And we're going to talk about investment and all that stuff in a minute. But like when I see this 30-year rule, I'm kind of thinking like, maybe condos aren't so bad now, right? It's like, because realistically, they're the most primed to go up in value because of this new rule. Yeah. So maybe this is a good time to consider buying a condo. Like, you got to be able to float it for the next little bit. But when we're thinking about things that can actually move up in price, that have space to move up in price, condos seem like definitely the winner here right now. Even though it's the least attractive purchase.
So if it was on resale, I'd agree with you for sure.
Yeah.
But because it's on only new builds, I'm a little apprehensive. And the reason why?
Because of the price appreciation into the... Yes.
Like I recently looked at some stats on condos downtown. There was like a project, I forget the name of the project, but it's been released right now. And I think it was like 17 or 1800 square feet in like downtown core. And within the area, they're selling about $1,000 a square feet right now. So it's like a 70, 80% premium, right? And just to take 30 years doesn't make, you know what I mean? Like it's not really gonna move the needle if you really want to get into the market now, right? And go on the 25-year amortization, right?
Yeah, you're right. Because it is just on the new, I don't know.
That's my only challenge to like support it, right? Yeah. The only reason I support it is at least they're making some change, because the whole hope is that, they see that this isn't working and they're like, okay, let's push it to the resale market, right? But
see, when the confidence comes back though, it'll just trickle down everywhere.
I know.
Like those people will start using that. They will start buying new construction. And it eventually will trickle down into resale. Like if the confidence comes back. I guess right now, this doesn't really affect anything at the moment.
Yeah.
So how do you see, rates going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball, but, I do a lot of research in this, read up a lot on this, because, we have a lot of clients who are in variable. And one of the things we do is, we look at opportunities to lock into it fixed at a good time, right? So we had some clients who were in variables of like 6%, right? And we just recently locked them into 4.89 as an example, right? So, we're always looking for opportunity.
4.89?
Yeah, 4.89, 3 years. So
wow, I got 2 renewals coming up. I hope I get this lucky.
Hopefully, man. Yeah. Hopefully. I got 2 coming up this year too.
Yeah, so, I have one in the summer and one at the end of the year. I'm like, oh my God. But
yeah, no, I mean, that's a lot of people right now, man. Yeah. They're trying to even renew early just to kind of get ahead, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, personally, right now the economists are, they survey the top economists, and they're saying 2 rate cuts by the end of the year, right? When we started this year, that was 4, right? It's gone down to 2.
How do you feel about all these predictions? Because I don't think I've heard you say anything in terms of like, oh, rates are coming down.
No, I never say that publicly, right?
Yeah.
But I do have a private newsletter that I send out to my clients, and we give them like an update of what the market is saying. I'm never saying what I'm predicting, right?
Yeah.
Just because,
Are you comfortable saying it here?
Yeah, no, I can definitely say what I feel comfortable. Yeah, so rate cuts, I do think we'll probably see 2 to 3. I'm leaning more towards 3 this year, right?
This year?
Yeah, 3 this year. So 0.75 decrease. But it all depends.
What would be the catalyst for 3 rate cuts this year?
I think the Bank of Canada has been. Sorry, let me collect my thoughts here. Okay, so I think the Bank of Canada has been communicating all year long. Their only focus is bringing down inflation. Right. Inflation is at 2.9%.
Okay.
Right? If inflation is down to 2.5 and it stays there, it doesn't increase, right? Which right now there is a little bit of a risk because of the oil prices, right? Gasoline prices. But let's just say it stays there. They have said visibly that they're going to cut. Like Tiff Macklem has said on his conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, he says a lot of things. He did say rates are going to stay low for a long time as well. So I don't know if we can trust him. Right?
He needs a communications guy so badly. He has the worst language.
Well, people are saying that he should be arrested because people took his advice.
That's what I'm saying.
Made real estate decisions, business decisions, right, and now lost X amount of dollars, right?
The Bank of Canada needs a PR team. Like they
100%.
need somebody that can reword the stuff that they're trying to communicate.
100%.
Because the way Tiff has been doing it for the last year and a half has been an absolute disaster.
He stopped though recently.
Well, not really, because even when we were coming down on the rates, he would use language like, we're going to pause.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think...
But he always says there's always room for increase.
I know, but...
He does preface that every single time now, I find.
But the way he does it, it's just... There's just enough room where industry experts could be like, oh, he's pausing. He's about to get ready for rate cuts. Versus if he just used the word like skip, right? We're skipping this rate increase. Then that implies that there's another rate increase coming, or potential rate increase coming. I just think language matters. And
100%.
He continuously talks to us in a way where he's just giving us hope all the time. And everybody is ready to jump on this. And so like with a rate cut coming, like my fear is as soon as a rate cut comes, everybody gets active again.
That's going to happen. It's going to happen.
But if we get active again, that means inflation numbers go back up. And then now we have to have a conversation again about, do we raise rates?
Yeah.
So that's why I asked, like, why would we cut the rate 3 times in the year, you know?
So I agree with you. I know it's a tough...
it is. It was just a discussion.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my whole preface for 3 rate cuts is, number one, inflation has softened quite a bit, right? We overshot the increases. We didn't need as many increases as they did.
I agree with you.
They did it because they were too late to the game to start the increases. They should have done it earlier. They didn't. And because of that, inflation got out of hand and they had to start being over aggressive, right?
Right.
And that helped because now it's gone from, I think it was at 8% at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
7-8%.
Yeah. And now it's down to 2.9. So it's definitely working, right? But now it's like, how much pain is it causing in the market? We're seeing unemployment go up, right? We're seeing businesses fail more, right? More insolvencies, more people racking up credit card debts. I get a lot of clients trying to, consolidate debt because they're struggling right now, right?
Yeah.
Especially business owners, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's just a matter of time. I know our friends down south, the US are killing it. The GDP is increasing. Yeah. They're not feeling as much pain as we are, right? And I think right now they're predicting no rate cuts this year.
I think Jerome Powell came out and said, like, don't expect anything. I don't know if he said it or someone from...
somebody said it. I'm not sure who it is.
Yeah, they said 2025. Don't expect anything until 2025.
Exactly. But it's an election year, so I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But again, I think that will maybe cause some, not to get too technical, but some discrepancy between the US dollar and Canadian dollar. But I think Tiff Macklem doesn't care about that right now. I think he will bring down the rate, right? But I do agree. If he sees that the market goes crazy after one rate cut, I think they will take a little bit of a pause, right?
Yeah.
On the cutting. I do agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Right. But I agree with you. I think a lot of folks are ready to like pounce on the opportunity, because I talk to people almost every day, which I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
And like, they have a reason to move. Like, could be kids, could be like, hey, this space is too small. Hey, I need to get in the market. I'm getting married soon, or downsize, right? Whatever it may be. But they're like, hey, I don't know if it makes sense right now because, rates are at X amount, right?
Yeah. They're essentially trapped in their homes.
All these people are going to now bid against each other in a few months or whenever the rate cuts happen, and they're going to end up paying a higher price, right?
That's what I'm saying.
And
I feel like if you're going to do rate cuts, it's got to be when this is going to sound horrible.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's got to be when we're at our lowest, when everybody is just beat up.
That's what they're trying to time that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you look at 2008 or when that recession happened, that is kind of what happened, right? They cut rates. Nobody moved on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they implemented quantitative easing, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when the market started moving. So I'm almost thinking right now, like, we're not ready for rate cuts. If we do, we're just back to where we were a year ago.
But that's the other thing, right? If they wait too late and it gets really bad, it's not just going to be a 0.25 decrease. It might be 0.5, 1%. It'll be more aggressive cuts because they really need to, get the economy working again, right?
Yes, but I think in that moment, what's going to happen is so many people will be like so hurt that they're not going to be able to jump back into the market.
I get
right?
that, yeah.
It'll be
if you're unemployed, of course, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be a slower climb back up. It'll be institutionalized buyers getting in, and then we'll like catch up later on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's interesting. Listen, I hope you're right. If we could get 3 rate cuts this year, I'm
we'll
all
see, man. We'll
for
see.
it. Honestly, even one rate cut would be good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't see what the catalyst is at this moment. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
No, there's definitely two different parties, right? So ones that believe there'll be multiple cuts, and then one that don't think there's any or even one at all, right?
Yeah.
I still am in the camp of 2 to 3, but yeah.
Like one in the summer, one in the fall.
So one in July, I think, right?
September.
And then one if it's not in July, it's going to be in September.
Yeah.
And then one again in like October, November, around there.
Okay.
Whatever the next one is.
I think it's November.
November, right?
Yeah,
okay,
November.
Yeah.
I think, November.
It's every 6 weeks, so.
Yeah. Okay. So, hold on. I had something here that I was going to ask you. So, yes, we were talking about investments now. So we kind of talked about this a few times, right? Investments versus hedging your bets against inflation. And I guess it's this, I just want to speak to the language that we use in terms of, buying property. Most people in the real estate community, when they're discussing real estate in terms of like, you should buy more because you're investing, right? And in my mind, you're not really investing. You're really just trying to protect yourself from not getting left behind. Because with an investment, you should be able to somewhat forecast what your returns are going to be year over year. Like at least have a ballpark. Like if you buy a home right now and you're investing, you're really just hoping to God that everything is going to start rebounding over the next 5 years. So how do you feel about that in terms of the language that we're using, investment versus hedging your bets against inflation?
Yeah. So I think when you say investment, to me, it's long-term.
Yes.
Right? When you're doing something where you're trying to buy and sell quickly, that's not investment. That's more of a business, right?
Yeah.
You're just it's more active and you're trying to make money by being more active in your investment or like an active investment, right? When you're looking for, quote unquote passive investment, which we know real estate could and could not be depending on, what type of real estate you buy. I think you need to look at it long-term, right?
And we're not day trading real estate.
Exactly.
So yeah, if you're not buying it to hold for 10 plus years, don't buy it.
Exactly.
Don't buy it.
And when I look at it long-term, I try to look at the historical returns over a long period of time. So for example, 40 years is what I look at typically, right? 25 to 40 years. And when I look at the GTA, in the past 40 years, the average GTA price rose by 7%, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? So I wouldn't even use 7%. My conservative self would probably use 3 to 4%.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And
100%.
Even at that, because of the power of leverage with real estate, your investments it makes a lot of sense to invest in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So I was just going to say, no, I agree with you. Like, I don't want it to seem like I don't believe in investing in real estate.
Course, yeah.
Absolutely. Like I've done it myself. I guess I'm just like, when we say investments and then when I think of like the fresh buyers, they might not be understanding because they'll buy something thinking it's an investment, but we're in an uncertain economy and their investment may not cash them out anything over the next 5 years, right?
So this is the best analogy I like to give people like that, right? So it's like trading stocks.
Well, that's
me
exactly.
and you, we can go on, what's a Wealth Simple, Questrade, whatever it may be, buy a Tesla stock and see how it goes, right? Hey, it might shoot to the moon. We may think we're, superstar traders, or it could tank and, lose all your money, right?
Yeah.
But if you're working with the right professionals, right team, like I know folks who work with investment advisors or like private banking and things of that sort, and their portfolio have grown year over year, like 10%, 15% when the market is down, right?
Yeah.
So there are different investment opportunities. You just have to work with the right team to understand which ones are, or which type of asset you should buy.
Exactly.
What works for you, because one person a condo might work for, one person a detached like it's not going to all fit one, right? And the other thing to also consider is what is your qualifying power, right? Not everyone can qualify for the same type of property, right?
Yeah.
There are some people that can qualify for Toronto. Some people need to buy the same type of property maybe in like Windsor, or like, not saying that's where you should invest, but just giving you different options, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, listen, like I'm for it. Like I'm all for investing in real estate. I was just more so when I see the stuff on social media, it is a little bit concerning the way we communicate the message.
Yeah.
And like it's like, it's so aggressive, some of the realtors or whatever. I think you're going to say something here, but they make it seem like, this is the time to buy. And it probably is. It probably is, because we're near the bottom. I don't know that we're going to bottom out any more than this. But like, I think we have a bit more time to make that move if they
100%.
want to. The urgency is not there as much as we're portraying it, maybe.
I think, you know what it is? I think so the thing about social media, the good and bad is, you can get great advice.
Yeah.
And the bad thing is you get terrible advice, right? And I think a lot of times, realtors and mortgage brokers, they may believe in something, but they don't have enough conviction to back it up, right? And I think that's what we lack and we see.
Yeah.
For example, like you said, hey, there's someone saying, hey, you should buy now. Okay, so why should I buy now? Show me a property that makes sense in today's market for me to buy now, right? If I'm doing something like that, that's how I'm going to portray that opportunity, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Like, for example, right now is a great opportunity to buy. And the reason why is because of all this uncertainty. Me and you, two professionals in the space, have no idea where rates are going.
None.
We're both on opposite spectrums on where we think it's going, right?
I'm lost.
So think about the average consumer or homeowner, right?
Yeah.
So this gives you the opportunity to get deals, right? So if you have a seller that's very pessimistic and is oh man, GTA real estate's gonna crash, right?
Yeah.
This capital gain stuff is gonna mess everything up. I need to get rid of my property now, right? Where you can come in and be like, hey, listen, I'll get this property at, maybe 10% market value, right? Under market value. And hey, if that makes sense for you cash flow wise, right? If you're not making cash flow, investments typically don't make sense.
Yep.
In very unique scenarios, you could be cash flow negative and still make sense, but most case scenarios you cannot.
Yeah, as long as you can factor in the appreciation, then you can be cash flow negative for a little bit and then make it make sense.
I always like to make investments where even if it's cash flow neutral, you're still making money. Not cash flow, appreciation neutral.
Appreciation, yeah.
So no appreciation, how much am I going to get in return? Because as you know, in real estate, we get the cash flow and we get the principal pay down through the rents, right?
Back when you first bought your first home, was that an investment property? It was, right?
It was.
But you were probably upside down on that, no?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't upside down?
I wasn't.
Oh, okay. So you were making cash flow even then?
Yes, but very low.
Yeah, because
when 200. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's how it was back then. It wasn't much. You were usually upside down.
So that's where now it's it is a bit tougher to get cash flow for sure, because if you're buying something turnkey, it's going to be a little bit more costlier. Yeah. So you typically have to get something that's, not turnkey, force appreciate it, add a unit, whatever it may be, and then increase the rents and do it that way, right?
Yeah.
But then you got to look at your cost of capital and see, how everything makes sense. But again, not to kind of dive too deep into it. I think that's the approach you should take, right? This is a lot of money you're putting on the table, right? You need to make sure this makes sense over the next 5 to 10 years. And you need to make sure that this is something you're able to hold for that long, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's what I spoke about earlier, where it's I think the biggest mistake people make is because they see this stuff on social media, they over leverage themselves, right?
Yes.
People feel like they need to buy 10 properties for some reason.
Well, that's because that's what we're telling them to do. Yeah. It's go borrow against your property, pull out all the equity, go buy the next one, because that's what smart people do, or that's what and responsible investors do.
Yeah.
So you can't blame them.
Which they do.
Listen, I've done that.
Every single person is different.
That's what I'm saying. Because to be able to go buy another property, you're a business operator. You gotta be built that way. Most people are not. They're just doing what they think is best for their family. Someone's told them go leverage the money against their property, go buy another one, because that's how you build for their future. But they're not thinking about all the stuff that you have to do in the interim, right? Leading up to cashing out on that investment or being able to hand that down to your kids.
Yeah, and you need to mentally be okay to carry that much debt, like you said, right?
Exactly.
There's people that probably don't want to open up their banking app because they'll see all the mortgages and see that line item of liability saying whatever it may be, 2-3 million maybe, I don't know, right? If you have multiple properties. So a lot of that scares a lot of people, right? Especially, we come from a generation where our parents are pay down that mortgage, every penny goes to that mortgage, right? Whereas now it's no, take everything out.
Accumulate as much debt as possible. Max everything out. That's kind of how we've been conditioned. So speaking to that, who do you think should be in the market right now? Who should be buying a home?
So right now, I feel like first-time homebuyers have a great opportunity. Yeah. Just because that entry-level price of a condo, for example, especially in downtown, just recently, my client bought a 1-bedroom for $530 in the core.
Yeah.
Right, and that same price is going in Pickering, I find.
Yes.
Right? So it's
on
crazy.
Bailey. On Bailey.
So
those what are they called? I forget the name
University
of it.
or Universal?
Universal.
Yeah. So it's just crazy to me that like in the core of downtown, where obviously is prime real estate, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you're going to get some great tenants as well, right? You can get something for the same price as something, 45 minutes away, right?
Yeah.
So I think just getting into the market, the lower priced properties are a little bit more attractive now, right? They were a little bit harder to reach when the market was a little bit higher. Like condos were like in the 700s at the time, right? And then even like condo townhouses, if you have a higher income, or even detached. Like I've had clients who bought detached under $1 million.
Yeah.
Right. And that wasn't the case during the last, like before 2023,
you
right?
couldn't even dream of it.
Yeah, everything detached was over $1 million.
Anything,
even
detached.
a townhouse, right? A freehold townhouse, was
like in our neighborhood, or in Seton, like let's just say, like I remember townhouses touched 1.37 million. I think was the highest, or 1.35.
Yeah,
nuts, bro. Nuts.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I see that opportunity, and then the second opportunity is people that are looking to move up. Because obviously the market took a hit. So those $2 million houses even in Seton, let's just leave it there in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
$2 million, those are now going for like 1.6.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Or even 1.5. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. That's kind of the average right now.
Yeah, so that's a 400, 500 decrease. If you're living in a condo or even like a townhouse, you wouldn't not have gotten that much of a decrease, right? So now you can go buy that property because now you have less of a gap, right? Assuming you can qualify for it, of course, and you're okay with the increase in payments. But if it's a detached property or even an end unit townhouse, it has a separate entrance. You can cut your costs quite a bit. And I'm seeing a lot of people buy properties, and one of the requirements is to have a separate unit because there are a lot of people that are house hacking, right?
Yes. Or it's the only way to afford.
Exactly. I'm doing one of my investment properties. I just added a secondary suite as well, and yeah, man, it's going to increase my rents by $1,800, right?
Oh,
so shit. I think that's a huge gain for me because I only have to put I think it was like $45K in, right?
So have you done the math on let's say maybe somebody who, because a lot of people are trapped in their homes right now, right? Because the thing that they think about is we have the money, we have the equity, we can sell this home, we can buy another property. The problem is now our payments go up X amount of dollars, right? If you believe rates are coming down, then you would forecast that in your calculations. And maybe you just go buy that home, take on the additional payments, short term, 1 to 3 years. And then now you're in that home at a discounted price. So $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 less. And yeah, you're paying a little bit more monthly for the next however long. But then in that 1 to 3 years, you just renegotiate the rate or you redo the deal. Have you considered those numbers yet? And are those conversations that you're having with people? Because I think those are the people that should be buying homes 100%
right now. Having conversation with people about that. Yeah. Because I get a lot of people like, oh, how am I going to afford this for long term? Right. Yeah. And I kind of showed them a graph of the last 25 years. This is what the rates have been. On average, rates have been anywhere between 3 to 4% in a normal market, right? Closer to 3, right? So if we're looking at even just 4% rate, your payment is decreasing in some cases, depends on how big the mortgage is, right? Okay. It's going to decrease quite substantially, right? With at least a few $100 for sure, right? From where they are right now. Yeah. So when people see that, they feel a little bit more comfortable. You can always stretch back the amortization if cash flow is going to be an issue, right? But I find that every 5 years, your income is going to increase. You're going to have more disposable income. And maybe in 5 years, you want to pay down the mortgage faster. So maybe you want to increase your payments, right? But you have a lower rate, but you want to increase your payments so you can pay down that mortgage faster, right? Right. So I think a lot of people, they struggle with it because in the present moment, it's probably what you see all the time where anytime you buy a house, even I feel this, every time I buy a house, I have buyer's remorse right away. Yeah. Right? Even though I ran all my numbers, I know guaranteed this is
I thought I was the only
steal
one.
Of a price, right? Yeah. You're just like, shit, what did I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's a big commitment. You just signed off on one of the biggest transactions of your life.
But you give it a few days, maybe for me a few days, but the average person maybe a few weeks, few months, just because they're not dealing with these types of purchases on a daily. Then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a good investment. It's a good time I bought it now, right? But I think a lot of people do fail to recognize that, right? That rates are coming down and their payments can decrease or will decrease. Yeah. Right. Because it's absolutely not sustainable. We're talking about rate cuts this year. Yeah. Worst case next year. Yeah. So we know rates are coming down. There's no way
it's inevitable.
It's inevitable. Stay at this long term.
I think the only I agree with you. Rates are coming down no matter what. I think the only thing for me is like how quickly it comes down.
That's what it is.
I just don't believe that it's as aggressive as people are saying. But like even for myself, like I'll just use myself as an example. Like I bought in 2020 when the market was down, right? And on my street, like I was I overpaid on my home by $250K or so. And that's just because in my mind, I was just like, if I don't get into this home right now, I won't be able to afford it in the future. So I wanted to buy new construction as well. So I had no choice. I had to pay that premium. So I'm just telling you this example because I do think a lot of people who are feeling trapped in their homes because, hey, I can't move. We're overpaying in the short run. They shouldn't view it that way. This is your principal residence. This is where you're going to lay your head for the next 25, 30 years. I think they should move on that transaction. I think they should. If they want to move into a bigger home, this is the time to do it. Don't wait for the market to bottom out. Put your house up for sale now and go buy that other property. Yeah, you might be buried with payments for the next little bit, but as long as you know you can afford it for 1 to 3 years, I think the rates will work in your favor by that time.
And like you said, like, or what I mentioned earlier as well, like now is a market where you can negotiate.
Exactly.
Right? The moment you have one other person bidding with you, you're overpaying. Every time I bought real estate, I bought when the market was not down, but there wasn't as much activity.
When everyone was telling you don't buy real estate, that's when you went and bought real estate.
Yeah, like probably, 2022, right? I didn't buy anything. 2021, I didn't buy anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Markets, when market was going up, I didn't buy anything. But when it was down, I bought, right?
Yes.
And it's done really well for me. Right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I would kind of, like I feel like a lot of people feel that FOMO, right? Because they see everyone else buying and selling. They're like, oh, it's a good time to do it, right? But you also have to recognize if you're a first-time buyer, especially, because at least if you're selling, you're selling at a high and buying at a high, so it kind of evens itself out. But if you're getting into the market, now is the time to get in because
I agree,
because when things go up, you're going to be priced out, unfortunately, right?
You're going to be priced out. You may not even, you're going to be priced out, but like, as you said, less competition and you probably have much better quality right now. Well, not much. I mean, probably you do have better quality.
There's a lot of supply.
You get to pick what you want. Yeah, there's a ton of supply.
Yeah.
And the supply is actually pretty good too, versus when the market gets hot, like you're just left with what you can get. And if you end up buying what you want, you've overpaid for it. Probably.
Exactly.
Right.
And that was interesting, just to bring back to like first time buyers in the condos. I just noticed like the supply of condos is actually 50% more than it was last year, which is insane.
People
50%
are dumping
more condos, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of opportunity downtown, right? And I just think that, if you're looking...
I don't follow it as much, but that market it's taking a beating right now. Toronto condos are getting a beating. Like I put up a listing recently, and it's like the thing that a lot of agents will bring up is the fact that the average price per square foot in the neighborhood is $1,000, and what you're asking for is this much. So it's the same thing all across the board.
Yeah. But it's a seller's decision at the end of the day, right? If they get an offer in hand, definitely consider it. Right?
Yeah.
That's why I tell people all the time: put it in writing, put in the offer. Don't feel pressure that you need to kind of come to the offer price, right? Obviously, don't lowball and
don't disrespect the seller.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't disrespect the seller. Yeah,
but don't feel afraid not to put something in paper, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think the agents are just they don't want to do it because it's work.
Yeah.
I hate when that conversation comes up. It's part of our job.
It's part of our job. Work is, right? You get paid for it to do work.
Put the offer together, submit it. Like I get so annoyed when an agent will call me and be like, "Oh, I did all the work and put the offer together." Bro, that's part of your job. It's what you're supposed to do for your client, right? I don't want to hear this. And
we're all well compensated to do the work. You know what I mean?
It's the laziest. Okay, what else do we have here? Was there anything that I missed here? There was a bunch of stuff that we wanted to talk about. Let's see. So capital gains tax changes. You wanted to talk about that for a little bit, right? Talk to me about that. I'm not as familiar with it. I've looked into it a little bit. Like the only comments I can make on it is I think it affects all of us.
Yes.
Especially as self-employed people where we don't have like a pension and whatnot. We're essentially investing our income that we have.
No, for sure.
And so my understanding is all the investments that I make now are at this new higher capital gains tax.
Yeah. So
right. So this might affect my retirement.
100%. Yeah. So the capital gains tax that they introduced, it affects both folks with corporations and also regular folks as like self-employed individuals as well, right?
Yeah.
So currently the tax, and again, I'm not an accountant, so I'm just going to give you my understanding.
Surface level
Do
conversation.
not take this as
we are not tax professionals.
Yes.
This is a very surface level conversation.
Yes.
Don't take anything we're saying seriously.
Exactly. So from my understanding, previously, when anyone sold any sort of asset and you made a gain on it, 50% of that gain, let's say you sold for 100,000,
was eligible for capital
gains at your tax bracket. So let's say your tax bracket is at 50%, just to be, make the math easy. 100 grand, you're paying 25 grand worth of taxes, right? Mm-hmm. Now what they've done, if they've increased it from anything above 250K, anything under 250K, you still pay 50% of that for capital gains tax. Anything above that, you pay 66%, and the first is 55 or 50%. So everyone's understanding, and including myself, when I first read that, I was like, holy crap. So if I make 300,000, I have to pay 66,000 or 66% of that.
On the 50K.
On the, no, 66% of the 200, let's say, okay.
So if you made 300,000.
Let's say we made 400,000.
Yeah.
Okay. My assumption when I first read that was 66% of the 400 grand I have to pay in taxes. Correct?
Yeah, which is not true.
Which is not true.
Yeah.
So when I looked into it, right now, so let's say, for example, you got 400,000.
Yeah.
Right? So 400,000, as of now, you're paying 107,000 in your tax. That's added to your tax, added to your income to pay taxes on.
Sure.
Now, with the new rule, it's only 120,000. So for that 400,000, it's only a 13K difference. Right?
Okay.
And obviously there's other ways to kind of bring that down, like tax loss harvesting and expenses. So I think more than ever, what this shows me is that you need a really good accountant, right? Because these guys are like, CRA is really trying to or the government in general is really trying to, find different revenue points, right?
Yeah.
From a tax perspective. So yeah,
and the same applies on the personal side. Like when we go sell
that
our
was
home.
the personal side. That
was
was
the personal
about.
Side.
But on the corporate side, yes, it's the full 66,000. So there is more, or 66%.
That's what I mean. So for people like you and I, it is more expensive.
So 400,000 previously, you pay 200,000. Yeah. Right. Now it's 266, so 66,000. So it's quite a bit, right? Yeah. So on the corporate side, for sure. Yeah. Right?
So for people like us, we're getting hurt here in this one, and it's not just us, it's like all professionals.
Yeah, because there's a lot of folks that I work with that
are incorporated
9 to 5, but they have their holdings, their real estate holdings in a corporation,
like doctors and stuff like that.
No, regular folks too. Lawyers. Just because they just don't want that to affect their income and whatnot, right? Or affect their affordability on future properties and things of that sort, right? Everyone has different reasons, but there are regular folks that have it under corporation as well. They may reconsider that now, right? Right. If they plan to kind of divest those properties in the
near future.
In the near future, for sure.
Yeah.
The cottage country, I've heard that is starting to get a lot more supply because of this rule as well. So it's going to be interesting. I think in general, I think a lot of people will panic, just like any new tax or any new rules, right?
But you think people will panic so?
For sure. I think there will definitely be people that will. For sure there will. But I think when you look at the grand scheme of things, I think if you're for the long term, you're okay, because even I think this is reversible, right? Because in the early 90s, they also did a capital gains increase of 75%, and they walked that back after with the new government. So it could happen, right? Where it can go back.
Has Pierre said anything on this? Do you know if the conservatives have said anything on this?
I haven't really seen.
I stopped following this,
it's
the
just
politics stuff. But because I'm sure, you're right. This is probably not something that's going to be permanent, but this is just Trudeau's way of being for the people. He's trying to
find more revenue to get themselves out of water,
debt for all the spending that they're doing. They cannot. He's bleeding money right now, so he's got to take it from somewhere.
Exactly, right. So it's. I mean, not to get too political, it's very poorly run government, right? From spending, and I think they're just trying to figure out ways to get out of it, right? And this is one of the avenues. Whether it gets reversed or not, I mean, I'm not betting on it, but it is possible. But personally, for me, when I'm looking at like long-term investments, I don't think it will stop me. I don't think it's going to stop my vision in terms of growing my portfolio or buying more assets, because
you're going to factor it in.
You just factor it in, because I was looking at it, and like the new rules, let's say I made $1 million capital gains, the increase is 66,000, right? And I'm sure my accountant can bring that down
for sure.
by some sort of tax loss harvesting, some sort of expenses. I don't know what it is. I leave it to him to kind of decide that.
Yeah.
But a $66,000 increase is not going to stop me from making $1 million, as an example, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it's not going to stop most people, I think, once they kind of really look into it. But right now, there's definitely a lot of panic regarding that for sure. Like, I mean, I've seen so many people repost it and be like, what is our world got into? And we're going to leave the country and this and that. So
I guess the people that would be panic selling right now or thinking about selling are the people that are close to retirement.
Yeah, close to retirement, or is like what you said, like have large holdings in their corporation, right? Like doctors, medical
lawyers,
professionals, they have a lot of their holdings in corporations, right?
Yeah,
because it just makes a lot more sense for them tax wise, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a huge blow to them for sure.
Yeah, and are you just staying on topic real quick?
Yeah.
Did you follow up on the whole 3.1 million homes built by 2030 or whatever it was with Trudeau?
Yeah, I saw that, but I don't see that happening at all. Yeah. No.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Again,
they're talking about 3D printing homes too. And
so that's the thing. They're actually doing it. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's super cool.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's actually super cool the way they 3D print homes, and I think that is the future.
I mean, I could definitely see that for sure.
Yeah, it's literally a printer that's just dripping the concrete, and like it's actually super cool. I'm gonna send you this Instagram page that's like just dedicated to that.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, I love that.
But yeah, 3D printed homes, I think it's here to stay, and it's like we're doing it now. It's only gonna get better.
Yeah, for sure.
In 10 years, there'll be
just
much
like
more
any
efficient,
technology.
like any technology. Yeah. Exactly. And then there's prefabricated homes as well. Prefabricated homes have been a thing in the States forever. You build them off site, and then you bring them on site, you drop it down, or I think maybe you assemble part of the home on site.
There's a lot of cottages and cabins like that are prefabricated and they look really nice. I've stayed at one before in like an Airbnb. Super nice, man. Super nice. Yeah.
And the prefabs is the way, like I think a lot of people are going to be doing their backyard.
The garden suites.
Suites, right? Yes. Like I've even like looked into it a little bit. I just haven't seen any good suppliers or
there's some good ones. I can send you a few
What's
links.
like the cost like that for?
It's about 200,000.
200.
Yeah. But that's just they do everything. They take care of the permits, the servicing, everything. But
what about all the like the even the building, like the plumbing, the electrical,
everything, like literally like open the box kind of situation.
Okay.
But the only caveat is it's a 1-bedroom,
which is fine. So have you done any of those?
I haven't done it. I'm definitely waiting for the technology to get better so they can have a lower cost. Of doing it. I know when it first started, it was much more. Much less because I think there wasn't as much interest and the garden suites wasn't like widely
it was weird.
Permitted. It was like in certain areas like Barrie and I think like I forget the other area, but Barrie I connected with the guy there and he was doing it at a really good price. He did it for himself. And I mean in Toronto I think everything is just going to be more costlier anyways, like just because of it being the city and people knowing that they can charge more. But yeah.
Are there any financing options for this? Like, can I finance this if I wanted to?
You can finance. You can finance it, but it has to be as a refinance.
Okay,
right.
So
but the problem is right now, even if you refinance, there's no comparable for you to compare it against for your equity increase, right? So, for example, like if you're looking at, let's say your property right now, and you're looking at refinancing it with the garden suite. There's no garden suites in this area, right? And so they're just going to compare it to another house in this area.
Right.
So without the garden suite, maybe add a slight adjustment, right? I mean, you probably have to confirm how much of an adjustment it is with an appraiser, but it won't be as much as you put in for sure, right?
You have to have some equity in the property.
So right now it is that you have to have some equity. Downtown it's a little bit easier because there's a lot of laneways, right?
Yeah.
So you can like, if you're doing a laneway, you can do financing on those a little bit easier, but on garden suites right now, no. But builders of garden suites are offering good financing options.
They have their own financing.
They have their own financing. I connected with one that's, I think it's like almost like $400 or $500 a month.
And how many years? Do you know how many years that they're doing it for?
I gotta double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like I'm even more open to the idea now.
Oh, for sure.
It felt weird initially. Like you're gonna put a garden suite in your backyard.
Well, that's like Uber, right? The stranger driving you, picking you up.
It's true.
It always feels weird, right? And then eventually you're like, oh, okay, this is actually very convenient.
Yeah.
It's gonna, it's like someone living in your basement too, right? But this is totally off your property, right?
Yeah, like I'm fully open to the idea now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would absolutely entertain it. If there was a convenient way of doing it, I probably would do it.
Your house is actually perfect for it because you got that corner house.
Oh, yes.
So
yes,
you can completely leave it to the side.
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't do it on my own principle.
I know, no, but I'm just saying, if you ever decide to move, do it, you can do it.
That's true. On the corner lot, you could just do it there.
It's much easier.
Then, you're right.
Because they can just have a full, you can even do a full separate like fencing. Like,
yeah.
So,
You're right. It will work. I just wouldn't do it at my own house. I don't want that.
Me too.
I don't even like renting out my basement. Like I don't even like that idea. Okay, there was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, buying down interest rates. So like that was something that I had heard about a little bit earlier this year. Can you just like talk to me about that a little bit in terms of how that works? Who would even entertain buying down a rate outside of potentially trying to do it for a sale, maybe like to essentially like, I'm going to transfer my mortgage to you. And so therefore I'm going to buy down the rate for you. Like who would actually entertain this idea?
Yeah. So buying down rates is a very common practice, right? You do it to stay competitive, get a good rate for your client, right? So it's definitely something we do as well, right? But I think it also depends on your lender that you're working with. So a lot of, especially nowadays, a lot of banks and lenders that we work with, if you're one of their top status brokers or, you know, doing the more high volume with them, they already offer you discounted rates compared to other brokers. So that's why it's really beneficial you work with an experienced and, you know,
someone like yourself,
seasoned broker. Because if they're getting, if they're doing high volumes, they're also getting high volume discounts from the lenders, right? And they're giving you discretionary pricing. Right. So a lot of the banks, we give them a rate and we say, hey, listen, this is the rate we want, right? This is the rate we're getting somewhere else or whatever it may be. You know, we play with them, right? To see which negotiation we need to, what type of negotiation we need to do to get the rate down. And they'll come back and say, hey, this is the rate we'll give you. You may need to buy it down by this much, right? And when we buy it down, that means you lower your commission to get the better rate for the client, which we do to make sure the client gets the best, because at the end of the day, we're here for the best interest of the client.
Okay,
right?
so the way you're doing it is you're actually lowering your commission.
So there's different ways.
Yeah, because I was going to say,
sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, right? So it all depends on how the bank wants you to structure it to get to the rate that we want.
Yeah.
So for example, let's say they're offering 4.99, okay? But in the market, they're offering 5.39. And the discrepancy can be that much or even larger, actually. For sure. And they may be like, okay, you want 4.99. This is what we're willing to do, but we want you to have some skin in the game too. Yeah. All right. So that's typically how it works. But again, that's also going to depend on the status of your broker. If your broker's new, there's no way they're getting you those rates. Yeah. You have to be with an experienced broker. You have to be an experienced broker, which I think is, it is kind of crappy because if you're starting new, you want to get clients too, right? But I think it makes sense with the banks because they also look at the efficiency and all that, because they don't want people to be like rate shopping each bank and then, you know, it drops their efficiency on their end because they work your file, right? And then last minute you're like, oh, sorry, I'm not working with you anymore, right? They don't want to work with people like that. They want to work with people they know they're going to be able to, you know, close a deal with, right? And if your client is a rate shopper, or which I think everyone should be, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the biggest cost to your mortgage, right? You need to make sure you're getting a good rate, right? You need to make sure that, you know, that's the client that is going to be here. That's the client we're bringing to you. And if the bank is like, oh no, we cannot get this rate, then hey, okay, that's fine. You're not competitive. We'll go to this bank, right? Right. And again, like I think just understanding that, and that's where experience comes from, right? So on that topic, like with my clients, I always tell them when they tell me they're going to go deal with the bank, their bank to get a mortgage, I'm like, no, go talk to a mortgage broker. And I'll usually be able to refer them to a mortgage broker. I think it's important that you only deal with a mortgage broker over the bank. 100%. And you can elaborate on this, but for me, I think a mortgage broker like yourself, you can actually provide real options and alternatives. When I go to a bank, they can only give me the one product. But forget all of that. Forget the fact that you're able to offer all of these alternative lending options. What I think that you provide, or like a mortgage broker over somebody in the bank, is like you actually care about the deal, right? Like you will make sure the deal gets done. You're working morning to the evening. I worked in the bank, so I know how this goes. Likewise. And you worked in the bank as well, so you know how this goes.
a mortgage transaction, yes, it's just another transaction. It's just part of the goals you have to hit. You're not as invested in making sure it gets done. So you might be missing phone calls, emails. You're not on top of it the way someone like yourself would be.
Yeah.
Right. So like, this is why I always say, always work with a mortgage broker over working with your bank.
Yeah.
What would you, how would you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I agree with you. It's not just, the experience, right? It's also more so the products and services they provide, your qualifications. Every bank has different qualifications. They're give or take around the same, but it's different qualifications. So if one bank says no, doesn't mean another bank is going to say like, hey, you can't qualify for this property at the amount that you need, right?
Yeah.
Because their qualification could be slightly different. They may look at self-employed income slightly different.
Yes.
Rental income just slightly different, right? So all of that, just understanding every nuance of each bank, a broker has that expertise, right? And they can look at your application and be like, okay, this is going to be the perfect bank for you. But if you really want to work with, let's say the green bank, this is what your qualification. But you go to the red bank, this is how much more you can qualify for if that's what you want.
Right.
If you're happy with that, then we go with that. But you know what I mean? Like we can look at different options.
The options is one of the benefits, but I feel like you as a mortgage broker, you get to hold their hand.
Well, yes.
You know what I mean?
Experience too, right? Because at the end of the day, like, this is our livelihood, right? In the bank, as we know, we work there just so we can get a promotion and get out of the job, right?
Straight up.
Yeah. You're not there at the desk like trying to be a financial advisor for the rest of your life.
No,
right?
That's actually the worst job in the bank. That's career suicide if you're in there for too long.
Yeah, the retail side is tough. It's tough to get out of. It's tough to get out of for sure. Like I know everyone when we're in retail, everyone wanted to get out. Their whole thing was like, I want to get like
to back office.
Yeah, only very few were like, hey, I want to be a branch manager, and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Right? But most people are like, I want to go downtown. I want to be in the back office.
Yes.
I want to work with the CEOs, the C-suite.
They want to wear a suit. They want to wear a suit and feel important when they go to the work. Whatever. Sure. So no, for sure. So I think that's a lot of the motive behind people that work in the bank, right? And at the end of the day, they're just seeing it as a piece of paper. Even like when I look at pre-qualification, right? We get a lot of business actually from the bank because they just dropped the ball. Yeah. Right? Where people be like, oh, I'm frustrated. I never heard from this person in like 2-3 weeks. Exactly.
Or like whatever it may be. Can you like just help us out? And in most cases, we take them back to that same bank. And we get them a lower rate with that same bank. And they're like, oh my God, like, why did it have to be like this? Why can't I just come to you first, right?
Because the misconception is I have a really good relationship with my bank. And so my bank is going to go they're going to go all out for me. They're going to make sure I get this deal. I'm not worried. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested, whatever. And that may be true. And you might get lucky and you might get a really good financial advisor that's going to really look after you.
There are some really good ones out there.
There are amazing ones. But for the most part, that's not the case. It's exactly what you said. You're in that role temporarily. You're just trying to hit your quotas so you can get the hell out of there.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so versus you, this is your career. This is what you do. It's your livelihood. You're going to make sure not only are you going to get this transaction done, but you want to be there for them in the future to do their other transactions.
Yeah. Like speaking specifically to me, we do a lot of post-closing consultations, right? So
what does that look like?
So annual reviews.
Yeah.
Like I told you, like if you're on a variable rate, we're looking for opportunities for you to lock in at a good time. We're connecting with that. We're sending you newsletters to kind of keep you posted on what's happening in the market, rate-wise, market-wise, what the opportunities may be, right? So things of that sort.
You're basically like their personal advisor in 100%. In that
financial advisor, but for mortgages, right? Because it's your biggest debt. So what kind of strategies can we do to bring down your debt, right?
Yeah.
So some people want, like you said, like some people want to pay down the mortgage as fast as possible. How do I get rid of this? This is some strategies we can do.
Yeah.
And everyone's gonna have different visions and different plans, right?
And you can cater it to them.
Exactly. And that's kind of our specialty, right? So just going back to the whole, the bank situation, right? I feel like, the banks work with brokers, right? So there's no really any loss for you to work with a mortgage broker as well. Typically back in the days, they didn't. There was only like 1-2 banks that did. Like I'm talking about like 20, 30 years from now. But now most of the banks do. BMO just recently,
this year, right?
Yeah, this year. And we're very confident that more banks will get in, like the other 2 banks will get in as well. But yeah, it's the banks work with the brokers. The brokers provide, a very sophisticated
approach to lending, approach,
and very tailored to your needs, right? And of course, this is for a good broker, right? I mean, just like any profession, there are
Bad
agents and brokers that don't care too, right? And do a terrible job, and we pick up a lot of those files as well, right?
That's true. Like it's true. Like not all mortgage brokers are good.
So I'm not going to say
they can be
like
just as crappy as the guys in the bank. So you're right. Like if you pick a bad broker, this could be a disaster for you.
That's why reviews is huge. Like you have to Google your broker. You got to do your research too, right?
Something that gives you confidence in the person you're working from, whether it's reviews or they're coming from a trusted referral source. But you need to have some sort of reputation.
Yeah. And I think just tying that back to social media, that's why I like to be on social media, because I also think that I have a lot to give, right? And a lot to provide. And just to give that confidence to people, knowing that, hey, like if you ever need like a second opinion, even just
call me.
Just hit me up, right? Like we don't have to work together if it doesn't work out. Like there's been times where I've gone, consultations with people and I've told them, hey, stick to your bank. This is the script you need to talk to them with to get that rate down, or this is what it is. Let's just take care of that. And I'm doing that goodwill because I'm hoping in the future we can work together, right?
At the very least.
And that's all I look at it.
Yeah, at the very least, you gave them some really sound advice.
That's what it is.
That worked. And they're going to be like, okay, when a friend has to buy, they're going to probably send them to you.
100%, right? Whatever it is. At the end of the day, like, I'm not counting it and seeing how everything ties back, but I feel like you keep giving, and people will like kind of be receptive to that and try and feel like they need to give back eventually, right?
Yeah.
So
that's the life of an entrepreneur. That's how we build our business. It's it's the long play. It's the long game.
And that's how you stay in it.
That's how you stay in the business.
Right? There's a lot of mortgage brokers, realtors. I'm sure you know that were probably killing it at one point. Now you don't even know where they are, even if they're a realtor or mortgage broker anymore, right?
You see that in real estate quite a bit. Like people go on runs, right? It feels like, for 1 to 3, 4 years, they're just crushing it. And then they just disappear. Right. And it's because they've burned so many people in that time. Like, yes, you were able to build some momentum.
And that's why I love being on social media, because I know my reputation is on the line
every
time. I will never mess up a client, never give them advice I would not personally take, right? And always do good, right? Because I feel like because I have this brand that I built, right?
It's a good brand.
Client, one file can ruin everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That's how I always remind myself, right? And if I know like, hey, I can't help you out, I'm telling you up front, like this is not something I can help you with.
Yeah. And you move on. And you move on. You're not gonna compromise your reputation or the deal.
Yeah.
Their money. Just to potentially make a commission check. That's insanity.
Yeah. The stories I'm sure you hear in the industry
all the time.
It's insane, right? Like how people are taken advantage of.
That's a conversation we'll probably have on the next episode for sure.
For sure.
Because I have lots of thoughts on that. Like I have lots of thoughts on how we educate, manipulate people into, into transacting.
I like how you said that,
right? So I do. Like,
that is pretty much the evil of social media, right?
It is.
That is what it is. Like,
and we will definitely deep dive on that on our next episode
for sure, man.
What else was there? We had a bunch of stuff that we want to talk about. I want to make sure we covered everything. I want to make sure we got it all today.
For sure, man.
Was there anything that you feel like we missed? We're pretty good, Darren. How are we doing for time? Damn, longest episode. I told you this was going to be the longest episode. I had a feeling this was going to be a good conversation. I think we're good. I think we're good.
I think we'll leave it at this and then.
So listen, that was a great.
There is more, but we want to be like,
so Varshan's going to be coming back. Like I said, Varshan, Dinesh, or Rune. So Runan's going to be on the episode next week. You haven't met him yet. Lance, and Driver 95. These are all contributors. So my expectation is that these guys will come back regularly. I think Varshan's going to be here probably the most regular. You'll probably see him like once a month at least.
Let's do it.
Because it's just, he's like the perfect person for me to have these conversations with. And we seem to have a really good vibe.
For sure, man.
So I think we'll continue to have these regular episodes, and we're just going to be crushing you guys with clips on Instagram. But
and you guys tell us too, right? Like if you want to hear anything or like any topics you guys want us to dive deeper into, like more than happy to, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. So for the next episode, if you have things that you want Varshan to cover, let Varshan know or let me know. Like today, we wanted to keep it kind of surface level. We didn't really go into stats. We didn't pull up data for the audience to see. But on the next episode, when he comes back, we're going to be a lot more nuanced. So yeah, if you have any questions or things that you guys want to learn or know more about, send it to Varshan or send it to me. And until the next time, thank you for joining in. And I don't think I'm introduced Darren. Darren's in the room as well. He's there he is. Yes, but yeah, sir. So yeah, listen, until the next episode, we had a really good one, the longest episode to date. Nice. We will see you next week, hopefully. Peace.
All right, see ya.
That was a good episode.
That was good, man.
Yeah, man. That was good. That was
very
good.
Natural, you know what I mean?
Yeah.